Welcome to Take It Up with Jessica Lee. I have Christi Olson, who is head of evangelism for search at Microsoft. Christi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to join you today.
Christi, could you share with us this news that came out recently, how Microsoft has a partnership with Verizon Media, which owns Yahoo property and Huffington Post, TechCrunch, there's several properties. How will that impact the advertisers who are on Bing? How will that impact the consumers like us? We would love to know more about it.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, Bing is a search engine. We're very similar to Google, just Microsoft's version. And so one of the announcements that Jessica and I were speaking about back in early to mid-January was the announcement with Bing and Verizon Media, where essentially Yahoo as a platform and all of Verizon Media platform or Verizon Media properties will be serving Bing search engine results across the properties starting the end of March timeframe. It's a pretty big announcement overall because two things. First, Bing right now, our market share in the United States is roughly 1 in 5 searches across both PCs and desktops. Most people don't know that. Everybody's used to Google as the verb, and we say we Google it. Bing has a pretty good market share. Where Verizon and the Verizon Media partnership with Yahoo comes in play is the fact that it's both Yahoo and AOL, which is part of the Verizon Media group, are the second and third the third and fourth largest search engines, essentially within the United States. And they also have very substantial mobile market share. So we're expecting to see really strong growth essentially happening across market share coming from this partnership across the board. And it's not just on search as a whole, but it's also what we call their owned and operated properties. So if you do visit websites like AOL, Yahoo, Huffington Post, TechCrunch, those sites are powered essentially through the Verizon Media partnership and will be serving ads and search results directly from Bing.
So that means that the advertisers will probably see a lot more clicks per dollar spent for advertising since there's a lot more properties. Is that right, that right now 1 out of 5 US searches is on Bing? Yes?
That is correct. Right now it's 1 out of 5 on across both desktop and mobile devices. If you look at just desktop, we actually come in close to 33%.
One of the exciting part about Bing for the organic search is the news display. Can you share it and explain a little bit about that? I think it's a very good development.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of different features. So Bing is a search engine. We have both what we call organic search and we have paid search. Organic search is sort of where the news API comes into play. Mm-hmm. And what that essentially means is if you are a news publisher, so if you are a news platform, you can essentially sign up to make sure that your content is showing up directly in the organic search results. And when you think about a search results page, imagine giant square, we have essentially a carousel for what's happening for news that comes across the top and that's featured within the organic search results. It also, through the news API, allows you to essentially have top stories that trend, and they tend to show at the very bottom of Bing.com. So when you come into Bing, you'll see a beautiful image every day that you can learn something new about a place or something happening in the world, and then the top news stories across the bottom. And so the API is one of the ways you can get into that program.
We're now in March, and that's Women's History Month. So I would like to touch on how it is like to be a woman in tech and your experience working at Microsoft. I know you came from an engineering background, even though you're in marketing now, you actually worked on some engineering products in the past. Let us know what your journey's been like.
Yeah, so it's interesting because right now, as my role as an evangelist, it is more of a marketing communications type of role. And most people don't realize that with having a marketing background, you can still work within the engineering world. And so when I first got hired at Microsoft in 2006, I worked essentially managing paid search here at Microsoft. I was in the engineering org because we were trying to solve for the challenge that when you're running paid search campaigns way back in the day, over 13 years ago, it really was difficult. There weren't very many tools or platforms to help you essentially do all your advertising. So I came in to run our search and decided we could create a product to make it much easier for us to manage across Bing, essentially what became Bing, the precursor to it, Google, Yahoo, and then about 20 other platforms that don't really exist today. And so I was hired as a marketer within engineering to create tools and platforms for other marketers to use. And what that precursor of the tool became is essentially part of Bing Ads Editor that allows marketers who are advertising on Bing today to upload all of their campaign data into a easy, simple to use platform and tool, and use a single Excel sheet to really manage what you do. I'm passionate about it because it took us from like managing marketing campaigns and accounts, it took us from tens of hours a week to make a single updated change to literally minutes.
Wow.
So I love the fact that you can come from a marketing background and still work within the product and engineering org to drive products and features and growth. And I'm still working with our engineering team today. One of the features that we released this last year is something called scripts. It allows a marketer to essentially write JavaScript to automate tasks. It's something that's been out there. Google's had it for several years, but I've really been pushing within our internal engineering orgs. It's a passion project of mine, and working with the team to say, this is what we need, and here's the impact it can have for the marketing community as abroad. And just excited that you can work in marketing and engineering at the same time.
You mentioned earlier that you're very involved in an organization that's called Girls Can Code. What is that? What is the purpose? Tell us about that organization. Sounds very exciting.
Yeah, so if you look right behind me here, there's a little poster that says hack. Microsoft, one of the things I love about it is they really ask employees to not just look at what you do in your current role, but how you can work across organizations and teams, work together to do fun things. So as part of the hackathon project for the last 2 years, I've been working with an internal team at Microsoft to work on a project called Girls Can Code. We spend 2 to 3 days volunteering. We take vacation days. It's outside of work. Working on this project where we've created essentially a visual basic or a small basic training program. And what that program does is it just teaches the really entry-level coding skills needed to just create something, a really easy to use program. And on that side, with what Girls Can Code does is we bring high school students then in on a regular basis into Microsoft, and we do a full day training teaching them just introduction to small basic, what it is, how to use it, and we teach them how to create some really entry basic level things like how to create a star with a little cursor on there. But it's getting them involved in STEM and teaching them that, you know, essentially beyond just the like hardcore coding, that it's fun, it's not that scary, and that anyone really can learn to do it, and really to help drive that passion project. And it's a huge initiative here at Microsoft to do those type of projects within the hackathon. Find something you love, find something you want to volunteer with, and then just continue engaging with both local community and just nationwide to help drive that forward.
You know, there's a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion, gender equality. So could you share with us some of the programs or initiatives that Microsoft has in place to push those metrics forward so we can have a bit more diversity in the workforce and gender equality?
Yeah, so Microsoft diversity and inclusion has been a huge initiative over the last 5 years here at Microsoft. One of the things about me personally is I was at Microsoft, like I said, back in the 2006 timeframe. I'm what you call a boomerang. I haven't been here the entire time. I left for a couple of years to get experience outside of Microsoft with other companies, and I came back. And one of the reasons I came back is because of the change in CEOs to Satya Nadella and Satya's really big push around how we function as a company and really embracing diversity and inclusion as one of the biggest initiatives at Microsoft. So he's been looking at how do we do a better job of not only hiring more, having more inclusive hiring practices, but how do we also make sure we have inclusive products? How do we make sure that our products are accessible for people with disabilities, and making that as part of our overall mission and overall thought process instead of something you tack on after the fact. And so I know, and I'll state this because I'm pretty sure I won't get yelled at, but I know Microsoft is not 100% the 50-50 of male and female across all levels of the organization, but they really are doing a lot to try to get there. And I'm seeing that in our organization and many of our partner organizations of what can they do to make sure that we have better gender equality? What can we do to make sure that we have more inclusive hiring practices, that we represent everybody from across all spectrums of abilities, as well as all backgrounds and ethnicities. And as you and I were talking, I'm a mom. You sort of see a little picture of my nugget behind me, and I'm expecting number 2. Something that Microsoft has done, which also really made me decide, I had offers from other large tech companies in the Seattle region, well-known big brands that you might know. And what made me come back to Microsoft was also the focus they have on new moms, that they have what we call employee resource groups, essentially to focus on new parents, to make sure that we have the resources we need to essentially figure out how do we do our job while we're going through maternity. What do we do so we can take leave? And they extended our maternity leave to 20 weeks, which is amazing for the US.
That is amazing. Yes. Yay.
20-week maternity leave. So I can take off essentially 5.5, 6 months and step back from my work. And then they offer a part-time transition program to bring me back in and come back and continue with my role. And not only do they do that, the other thing that is beyond amazing that I'm an evangelist for this within Microsoft because parents don't know about it is they also offer us a service called backup care, which I can get between 100 to 150 hours a year of essentially nanny or daycare services. So with my role, I travel quite a bit. You saw me speak down in California.
That's right.
I travel typically 50 days a year. And with that backup care service, I can actually bring my son with me and have somebody watch him at the hotel room. So I'm not missing out essentially on his childhood. I can be a working mom and essentially have him come with me and be really involved with him while working and continue my job. It's more so probably meant for, when your kids are sick or their daycare cancels, but I found a way to make it work so that I can travel and I can bring my son with me and sometimes my husband and continue doing the work I love and that I'm passionate about.
Thank you very much, Christi, for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to speak with you and learn about the initiatives taking place, the developments for Bing search. Any last words you'd like to share with the audience?
What I would say, and it goes back to just love for search, if you haven't been using Bing lately, try it again. We've had a lot of new features that we're rolling out to get you to see search in a different way. So if you ask a question, something like, I go back to I'm a mom, so the questions I tend to ask is, how high is too high for a fever? How do you get red wine out of a carpet? Or all sorts of things about stain removal because I have a boy. When you put in questions like that, we've actually started, instead of just giving you 10 blue links on a page, giving you what we call multi-perspective answers, where we take the information from across the web and give you both sides of a story. So how high is too high of a temperature? And we'll give you 2 different to potentially 3 different perspectives on that. And we also have that within the news channel as well, where if you're following a top trending news story, you can see the history of that entire story as it unfolds, how different types of publications report on it from a news perspective. So we're finding new ways to really give you information and data and make it really accessible to you. So check it out. And we have lots of great features and functionality that we're rolling out on a regular basis. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. We're not a replica of Google. We are innovating and trying new ways to bring data and information to you, our consumers. And we think you're going to love it.
Thank you very much, Christi, for being on the show to share about Bing's search development taking place. It's a very exciting time for advertisers. Thank you for watching. Take It Up with Jessica Lee, Christi Olson, evangelist for search at Microsoft.